Well, good morning and welcome to OverDeVest Nurseries. It's a beautiful day in early spring. The temperatures are rising, the sun's shining, the birds are chirping in the trees. It's nearly St. Patrick's Day and I'm full of the joys of spring. And as you see, it's a great day to be out here pruning roses. This is the trial area here in our nursery where we test and evaluate varieties to make sure that they do well here in this region. That's the mid-Atlantic and northeastern states of the US. And if you come with me now, I'll show you how I go about pruning bush roses. Now what you're going to need is first of all a good sharp comfortable pair of pruners, or what we call in the UK secateurs. And then, because roses are prickly, a good stout pair of leather gloves will help. And if you're pruning older, woodier roses that perhaps haven't been pruned in a few years, a long-handled pair of pruners like this will be useful, and perhaps even a pruning saw if there's some old novelty bits at the bottom that need tackling. And then when you're finished, because roses are hungry plants, a fertilizer, and that will get you off to a great start. Now, as you probably heard me say, I didn't give a specific calendar date. That's because it's going to vary depending upon where your garden is. In colder zones it's going to be a little later, whereas obviously in warmer zones it's going to be a little early. The trick is to look at your plants and try to judge when the worst of the winter has passed and the cold weather is behind us, and yet the young, strong growth of spring hasn't yet quite happened. And as it happens, this is a perfect day for me to do it here. So let me show you how I do it. So let me first of all explain why we prune roses like this. If you look at the plant here, you'll see that where it carries its flowers last year was on the young, strong growth. So by pruning anything and cutting it back, you stimulate growth from inside the plant. Strong, vigorous, vegetative growth that obviously is going to grow out, and that's the stuff that's going to carry flowers. If you didn't prune them, they would still grow out and they would still flower, but they tend to be bigger and woodier, less vigorous, and also they tend to be leggy and gappy here at the base. So what you're looking to do is to create a nice, vigorous, strong growing plant that's got room to grow and will be able to produce lots of young, strong growth that then's going to carry all of those glorious flowers. So the first thing I'm going to do is to remove the tag here. As you see, this is Rose True Bloom True Passion, a magnificent variety that has tremendous disease resistance that we're very fond of here. But one of the things I like about this variety is that it's nice and vigorous. It certainly flowers for a long time, but it also responds very well to pruning. Now the first thing I do is take out what I call the 3Ds, dead, damaged and diseased wood. So if you go through here and look for any dead pieces, and there aren't many, but there's a few pieces just here, you can snip those out, then look for anything that might be slightly damaged, and I see one here. Now it's in the shadow here, so it might be a little difficult for you to see, but it looks like something has rubbed against it and created a wound here on the stem. It's not a big deal, but it would be better if we just take that out beneath the joint, or the damage rather, and that will take care of that. Then what I do is to go in and shorten back and take out some of this little twiggy growth here that's inside the plant. These little short twiggy growths are really not doing that much. I see a dead piece here. I don't know if you can see that or not, but that's coming out. And because they tend to be weaker growing, you tend to cut those back further. So as you see, what I'm doing now is cleaning out the inside of the bush. Now here is a dead piece. I don't know if you can see that or not, but as you see, this piece here is dead. It's brown, it's dried out, it's desiccated, and when I compare it with this young healthy shoot that's on here, you'll see how this is dead and this is nice and healthy. So obviously that's the stuff that's not going to do any good, has to come out first. The idea behind this is to try to keep the center of the plant nice and open so that you get good airflow inside the middle of the plant. That helps to cut down on disease issues. So just go in first and remove all that little thin twiggy growth, because it's really not going to contribute much in terms of flowers. And once you get that out, you can then get a better appreciation of what the plant's like, and then you can decide on the next stage. And the next stage is to address some of this older, woodier growth here at the bottom. As you see, these are stems that grew out a couple of years ago. It was pruned back to here where the tip of my pruners are, and then last year these growths came out. So now this wood, if it goes through this season, is certainly 2 years old and getting on for 3. So this is now really past its sell-by date, in which case then it's time to go in and just trim those back as well. So I'm getting rid of some of the older, woodier shoots out of the center of the plant. That also, of course, will divert the energy out into the middle of the plant and help to open it up even more. So now that we've taken out any dead, damaged and diseased wood, the little twiggy growths that were springing up from inside the bottom, shortening those back quite hard, and then shortened back also and taken out some of the older, woodier growth, we're left, as you see, with this framework of young, healthy, very vigorous growing shoots. And they're the ones that are going to generate all of the growth and flowers during the year. Now, as a young man, many years ago, I was taught to carefully prune towards an outward facing bud. Nowadays that isn't quite so important, and certainly with some of the ground covering type roses, it's perfectly possible to go in with a pair of hedging shears and just cut them off almost anywhere. But you know, it's a lesson well learned, and for me, I still subscribe to really looking to see if you can get an outward growing bud and then prune back to that point. As you see, this shoot here is probably about 3 foot long, and so to generate growth, I'm going to take it back by about half. You see, the trick with this is that if you just left this here, it's going to grow out here and become, as I said, leggy and so on. The idea is to try and create growth that's going to come from these buds lower down. They're going to fill out and cover the space with lots of flowers. And that's why I go in now and prune to this outward growing bud. Now, I tend to be a little bit more aggressive than many other people in the industry. And the reason that I do that is that now, as you see, the buds are here and they're going to grow out and generate lots of growth. Now, as I hope you can see, roses tend to have soft, pithy stems. Stems that are pithy in the inside. And sometimes if moisture gets in there and perhaps disease spores, you can get dieback. And because this is pruned just above a bud, the wood around there is more lignified and more likely to callus over and heal quicker. And that's why I like to prune them just above a bud. Now it's a matter of going around the rest of the plant, and this shoot, as you see, is growing out here. There's an outward growing bud there, so I'm going to shorten that out to about there. Then if I look at this one, you'll see that it's got lots of buds going out here. It's got this long growth coming back into it. I'm looking to channel growth in this direction, and there looks to be a nice bud facing out the way in that direction, so I'm going to shorten that back to there. This one, on the other hand, is a little thinner, and you'll notice that with the stronger growing, more vigorous shoots, I'm cutting those back less, and with the weaker, smaller, thinner growths, I'm cutting them back harder. That's because obviously something that's strong growing like this one, if I was to prune that back to there, which is okay if you wanted to do that, but that's going to generate a lot of strong growth from there. So this one I think will do very nicely coming from here. But this one is a little weaker, a little thinner, so therefore I'm going to take this back a little harder, taking off about 3/4 or so of the growth there, again to my outward growing bud. And then working my way around the plant, let's have a look here. That's a nice looking shoot there, or bud rather, going out to there. Let's take that one back to about that height. And then look at this one. Really strong, really vigorous, breaking in 3. I could cut this back to here somewhere and that would be okay, but I'm rather going to probably shorten this one back and leave a little bit of growth to grow out like so. And then this is a bud that's going to go out in that direction, so it comes back to there. And now, as you see, we have a nice open plant that's beautifully poised to produce lots of growth, and we can look forward to a really good year of lots and lots of glorious flowers. And the last thing to do is to just rake around the plants, remove any of the old leaves and debris left over from last year, because this could be a source of reinfection of disease. So getting a good hygienic start off will certainly help. And then, because roses are strong growing plants, it's worth putting down a little bit of fertilizer. Now in this case, I'm using a slow release fertilizer here. The instructions calls for about a teaspoonful or so. This is a slow operating, well balanced fertilizer. So this is going to start feeding and then continue feeding right through the growing season. Just work that in a little bit with your rake, and in no time at all you'll see that these buds are going to start growing. The whole plant will put on lots of luxuriant growth, and you can look forward to a great rose season. So I hope you can see that by pruning them like this every spring, once a year, you'll generate lots of young, vigorous growth, which of course will then carry the flowers. We call it renewal pruning. So by getting the cycle going each and every year, it'll help to keep your plants nice and vigorous, strong growing, and producing lots of beautiful flowers. That's how easy it is. Get out there, have a go at it. Be a little timid if you want to, and prune it back a little higher if you're worried about it. But really, as you see, it's no harm in giving your roses a good prune, and they will love you for it and reward you with lots of glorious colour. This is David Wilson. Enjoy your gardening. It's good for us, and it's very good for our environment too.